Hello, my name's Perry Freeman. I'm assuming you're watching this because you're a fan of Lieutenant Joe Kenda and the show Homicide Hunter. Well, so am I. I actually worked for Joe Kenda. So I want to share just a little bit about what it was like working for the lieutenant. I guess I'll start with the fact I worked with him in patrol. I think he was a sergeant at the time, and I would have been a patrolman. Don't remember too much about those days, but I certainly remember the homicide days. I worked in homicide for quite a while under Lieutenant Kenda, and probably worked 60, maybe 70 homicides under him. And I think what a lot of people probably don't know, I want to share some of the behind the scenes issues. People don't realize that in a major crimes unit or a homicide unit like Lieutenant Kenda's unit, you don't just go to homicides. You go to all violent unattended deaths. So an unattended death would mean like somebody that died in the hospital under a doctor's care or in a rest home or something like that. So anytime there was anything suspicious, a shooting, which usually ended up being suicides, asphyxiations, hangings, those kind of things. We went out on all of those, and we handled all of those just like they were homicides until we proved differently. So in addition to the 60 or 70 murders that I worked while in the unit under Lieutenant Kenda, I went to well over 100, maybe 150 or so suspicious violent deaths with other detectives. So that's something the public probably isn't aware of. Let me just explain a little bit about the unit. There were 6 detectives that worked under the lieutenant and a couple of sergeants. We were divided in 2 teams, 3 detectives on each team, and we rotated week to week, and it would be our responsibility, if it was your week, for that team, those 3 detectives, to respond to any of these scenes, whether they're violent deaths or murders. And for some reason, a lot of the murders and stabbings and shootings happen at, between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Like when the bars close or when people have had too much to drink. A lot of times that was involved. Not always. We did plenty of them during the daytime also. But anyway, that's kind of how the unit worked. Joe was a very, very bright guy. Totally enjoyed working for him. He didn't really chew you out. He would just correct you if you made a mistake. And we didn't make many mistakes. You don't end up in the homicide unit by making mistakes in your career. So most of us were pretty seasoned cops before you even get into the unit. Let's get to the show. I go to a big retirement party for a buddy of mine who I'd worked with in narcotics, and I also worked with him in patrol a little bit. And he had been in the homicide unit before he left Colorado Springs Police Department also. But anyway, it's a big, big party, and at a big hotel. And I see the lieutenant. He was retired. At that time, I was a chief on a small department in another small city in Nebraska, actually. But anyway, I approach him, and I share a drink with him, standing up at the bar. And one of the first things he says is, "Freeman, I'm going to put you on TV." And I'm like, "What?" And he explains that he's been working with this guy, Patrick Bryant, and they're getting ready to produce a television show. And well, I knew who Patrick Bryant was. I had worked with him when I was in the police academy. He had filmed some training videos for us, and I'd done some other things around Patrick. So I knew he was very, very good, and he knew what he was doing. So Joe gives me his card, and that was about it. So after the party, I returned to my home, and it was months later, maybe 4, 5, 6 months later, my mother asked me one day, "Did you ever hear of a guy named Lieutenant Joe Kenda?" And I said, "Well, yeah, of course. I worked for him for quite a while." And she goes, well, we just watched a TV show of his called The Homicide Hunter. It happened in Colorado Springs. And I said, well, imagine that. That's where we worked. Anyway, I was pretty excited that his show had actually aired. So I went home right away, and I started trying to find that card that Lieutenant had given me, and I couldn't find it. I looked everywhere. I remembered the jacket that I had on that night. I thought maybe I'd stuck it in one of those pockets. I looked in every drawer, every place I could imagine where I had other business cards. I couldn't find the thing. So it was kind of a serendipitous thing. All of a sudden I looked across the bedroom, and sitting in plain sight on top of my chest was Lieutenant Joe Kenda's card. And so I picked it up, went right to the computer, and I shot him an email. Congratulations on your show. I heard that it's aired, blah, blah, blah. That was about it. Within an hour, I get an email back from Lieutenant Kenda. And it was quite a compliment, because it started out, the title was Great Minds Think Alike. And I thought, well, that's quite a compliment coming from Joe Kenda, who's a brilliant fellow. And it went on, and he said that he wanted to put me on some of the shows, and that he would have the production company hook up with me. And that was about it. And shortly thereafter, I was contacted by this production company, and I was taken out to Colorado Springs, I think 6 different times, and I assisted them in filming some of those episodes. And I think I might have even appeared on a couple of others, because they just needed some more people to talk about how homicide investigations work. But I did appear on a number of them, and I've got a list of them here. If you go to IMDB, where it lists where people appear in movies or direct movies or TV shows, those kind of things. I appeared in Rest in Peace, Pop Goes the Witness, Victim Zero, Bump in the Night, Bad Things Come in Threes, and I appeared on a couple of others, but I don't think I'm listed on those. But anyway, the one I enjoyed the most, and one of the cases I'm most proud of, was called Drive-By Murder. And that's a situation where there was a murder. We had a good suspect. We did a lot of work right away. The first 24, 48 hours, we did a lot of work. Brought the suspect in, interviewed him for hours. Didn't quite have enough to detain him and arrest him. Well, first thing in the morning, he flew to England and disappeared on us. So Lieutenant Kenda instructed me to put an arrest warrant for him, because that flight was enough for the probable cause to establish the warrant that we needed for his arrest. So I put together an arrest warrant for him with all the information we had, everything he said in the interview, and the fact that he left the country was enough for probable cause. When I got that warrant signed, I turned it over to the FBI. The FBI then presented it to Her Majesty's Court in London, and constables from Scotland Yard actually arrested him in Liverpool. He'd flown to London, and then he went up to Liverpool where he had family. And one of the highlights of my career was, I knew that he had been arrested by Scotland Yard, and the lieutenant comes out of the office and he goes, "Freeman, get your passport in order. You're going to the UK. You're going to London." Boom. I mean, not very many cops get to do that. So my warrant was approved by our judge, went to the FBI, they approved it, went to Her Majesty's Court in London, and they made the arrest. And here I go, I'm going to London. So I get there, I get hooked up with Constable Jean-Pierre Letizier, who actually made the arrest in Liverpool and brought the suspect back to London. And that's another story. Maybe I'll tell that story someday. I became very good friends with Jean-Pierre. We call him JP, and we still communicate all these years later. So that was a big one, and I still owe a lot of thanks to Lieutenant Kenda for sending me to England. It had never been done before. But back to Joe Kenda in the show. He's a great guy to work for, very smart guy, always had our back. And the way these things would work is we didn't have the suspect in custody or didn't have the suspect identified right away. Everybody would go do their part. Somebody would do the scene, somebody would follow up on the victim, somebody would follow up on possible suspect leads, and all the unit would be involved at first. And then we would all get together and meet in Lieutenant Kenda's office. We'd each share what we learned, and some of it would be from interviews, some would be from evidence that we recovered, some would be from the autopsy, and some would be from lab results. And then after we shared all that, and everybody had input, Lieutenant was very good about listening to everybody. And then he would say, okay, Freeman, you do this, Bjorndal, you do this, whoever. He would, assign us all additional assignments, interviews, evidence, that kind of thing. And then we might come back in hours, or we might come back the next day and we'd meet again. And that's the way it worked. And we would continue doing that until we had enough to put an arrest warrant together and go get our suspect. And as you know, we solved nearly all of those homicides. Colorado Springs has a great solvability ratio. So it was great. So I just wanted to come here and kind of tell you what it was like working for him. He always had our back, no matter what. Anything we needed, he got it for us. He would always listen to our theories. Most of the time his were better, but he did listen, and sometimes accepted our ideas. But it was a team effort, and he was the leader, there was no doubt. Not somebody you really would question, as you can tell by the show, I'm sure. So I think he's got like 170 some episodes or something and still going. I don't know if it's come to an end yet or not, but been a very successful show, and I was thrilled to be a part of it. And what I'm doing now, I just started my own YouTube channel called Cop Facts, and that's F-A-X-X, Cop Facts, to share some of the way we worked in homicide and in other parts of law enforcement. I was also an instructor at the police academy, and so I've taken a bunch of my classes and condensed them to 12 to 15 minutes. But a lot of that comes from the homicide unit, what I'm teaching there. So anyway, I'm thrilled for Joe, and if you ever see this, I guess I can call him Joe now that we're retired, both of us. Lieutenant Kenda, really thrilled that your show was so successful and all the other things that you've done. So you, as the viewer, if you like this and you want to hear more stories about what went on in those units, in particular the homicide unit, please hit the like down below, share this video, and please subscribe to my channel and come over and see what I've got to say. That's about it. I can't think of much more. Keep watching Joe's shows. It's pretty hard to watch all of them. I've watched a bunch of them. But like I say, it's got to be around 170, 180 episodes now. And I bet there's a few people that have watched them all, because I run into people all the time like, did you know Joe Kenda? Yeah, very well. Had a few drinks with him, had dinner with him a couple of times. Great guy. So anyway, if you would, check out my channel. Like I said, hit the like, subscribe, share this, and hope to see you on my channel. So have a good day.